Hey everybody, welcome back to another Steelers training camp, joint practice update today from the Post-Gazette. This will be our last one. This was the last practice that we were allowed to write and tell you everything that we saw, and it wasn't Steelers against Steelers, it was Steelers against Bills here at Acrisure Stadium, not Chuck Noll Field at St. Vincent College. I'm Brian Batko, joined by Ray Fittipaldo, as always, brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. Mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them now for a free consultation. Ray, let's start with the news, and then we'll get into some of practice. Mike Tomlin said Russell Wilson, standing right over here to our left, is going to make his preseason debut Saturday night against the Bills.
Yeah, Russ has been ramping up and doing more and more in practice the last week or so, Brian. And Mike Tomlin also said the first team offense and defense will play about 4 series on Saturday night. I think it depends on how they play. If Russell leads them to 2 touchdowns, I don't think it's going to be 4 series, and then vice versa for the defense. So the much anticipated debut of Russell Wilson will be upon us on Saturday night.
And there goes Damar Hamlin over our shoulders, obviously one of several players with local ties who is here today with the Bills, and you'll be able to see him Saturday night too at his old stomping grounds with Central Catholic High School and Pitt. So yeah, you're going to see, this is going to be essentially the dress rehearsal for the Steelers. We'll see how things go in terms of if there's quick drives, maybe they get more. If there's, long drives, maybe they get less. If there's turnovers, Mike Tomlin's probably going to want to see more from this new look offense. And then, play it by ear with that third game in Detroit. The Lions, probably known as one of the more aggressive teams, so maybe you play it a little safer when you go up to Motor City. But they also got a gauge for this new look offense today against a different team in a practice environment that's part practice, part game in terms of the competition periods. You're seeing different guys. You're kind of trying things that you might do in practice, but knowing, this is a different type of defense that you haven't seen. And I thought the Steelers' offense wasn't dominant by any means, but they might have been a little bit ahead of the Bills. And granted, these are training camp practices essentially still, not live. Hitting, taking to the ground, quarterbacks off limits, so it's slanted toward the offense, but I thought Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both had pretty good days out here.
Yeah, I did, and Buffalo really bitten by the injury bug. Matt Milano, their linebacker who was injured last year, a really big part of their defense. They got word today he's out for probably most of the season with a biceps injury. I guess he could come back later, but obviously they were dealing with that news today. I agree with you. Justin Fields led the Steelers on a 2-minute drive at the end, an explosive running play to get them into the end zone. And I thought during 7-on-7 and team periods, both Wilson and Fields and Kyle Allen, made a nice number of completions against that Bills defense. So we'll see what happens on Saturday night. Obviously, the Steelers are looking for a much better performance than they had against the Texans.
Or at least not as sloppy. And Kyle Allen should have some success considering he was with the Bills last year. So he knew a lot of these guys, as did Steelers linebacker Tyler Matakevich, who was with the Bills for the last 4 seasons before signing back here this offseason. Mitch Trubisky, I just saw him in the tunnel shaking hands with a lot of players. George Pickens, some people were clowning Mitch for a tweet I sent out. It was basically a throwaway, I think, but where it ended up on the sideline, George Pickens was right there to catch it. So that was for old time's sake and nostalgia. Not what Mitch wanted to see, but he did not lead the Bills' second-team offense to a touchdown in their 2-minute drill against the Steelers' backup defense. You mentioned that Justin Fields' long run. That's one of those ones where he kind of beat everybody to the pylon in a real game. Does somebody come flying in out of nowhere like a missile and take him out? Hard to say, but either way, we'll chalk it up as a Steelers touchdown. It ended on a high note for the offense. Didn't necessarily begin on one, Ray. In 7 shots, the first snap, Zach Frazier was out there at center because Nate Herbig's dealing with something from the last practice in Latrobe. I don't know entirely what happened. We can't review film like we would in a game, but all I know is Russell Wilson tried to take the snap from Zach Frazier. He ended up on the ground. I don't know if he got stepped on. Frazier said it wasn't him stepping on Russ. Maybe there was an overzealous D lineman, but either way, Frazier got a long look with the offense today, and that's going to be the case again, I think, Saturday night.
Yeah, it seems that way. Nate Herbig obviously not practicing today. If he has anything, they don't want to risk that long term. So great opportunity for Zach Frazier, Brian. Also great opportunity for Beanie Bishop once again. The Steelers placed Graylin Arnold on IR earlier today. So Beanie Bishop back with the first team defense again on Saturday night. They're going to have some other guys working in around him, so he's still going to be pushed. But those two West Virginia guys have chances to earn starting jobs here before the start of the season.
Yeah, as far as other guys who weren't really full today, TJ Watt did not practice, Veterans Day for him. And, read between the lines, we better not get TJ out there in a joint practice and get him banged up. Same thing for Cam Hayward. He was out there early, probably about a half hour in, took his pads off. He was done for the day. But despite those reputations around the league for joint practices, Ray, the first one for the Steelers since 2016, really no fireworks. Nothing worse than we've seen from Steelers on Steelers practices in Latrobe. There was a couple pushing and shoving after the whistle here and there, but nothing even remotely close to these all-out brawls that you see on Twitter sometimes.
I was looking for some haymakers. We had a couple of scuffles. One time Justin Fields was knocked to the ground during a team period. But, Mike Tomlin always says he wants these situations to be professional. Justin Fields also talked about that today when he spoke with reporters. So I thought both sides were well behaved. And really that's what you want out of this practice. They're going to have plenty of opportunities on Saturday night to knock the crap out of each other.
Yeah, and they've had plenty of opportunities over the last 5 years. They've played each other each season, and obviously last year they didn't do it until all the chips were down in January in the playoffs. And if you remember, that game got pretty chippy. If you remember the previous year, 2022, Kenny Pickett's first start on the road, that game got very feisty a couple of times. DeMar Hamlin and Pickett, James Daniels intervened on his behalf. Pickett, and I think it was Shaq Lawson was the edge rusher. But none of that today with the Mike Tomlin, Sean McDermott, college teammate relationship. They talked on the phone the night before practice, basically said, look, there's not going to be any shenanigans. I think both coaches really drilled it into their guys. One, we don't want to get anybody hurt. Two, we don't want to waste time. And three, we just don't need to deal with the foolishness. I was talking to veteran D lineman Dean Lowry after practice yesterday at St. Vincent, and he was like, I'm kind of surprised they're doing it. Two teams that have played each other a lot, and we expect to see them down the road. And that may be the case, but at least for right now, they're not going to see each other in the regular season. And today, they were just out here getting good work against one another.
And I think a lot of these times, Brian, proximity plays into it.
Yeah.
Like the NFL will schedule your preseason games. The Bills are a short 3.5-hour drive away. Somebody asked Mike Tomlin if there's going to be a return to the Bills next year up in Buffalo where they practice. He was non-committal on it, but it's been a while since the Steelers have gone away to do one of these. They've hosted the Bills twice now within the last decade or so. The Lions were in there as well, so he likes to do it at home. Maybe he'll be forced to do it on the road next year.
Yeah, so that's going to be the final practice before they head back to UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the south side, behind closed doors, where we'll still be able to bring you plenty of coverage as they prepare for the regular season. But all the training camp practices in Latrobe are in the books. This joint practice, first of its kind since 2016, is in the books. It was pretty fun, I thought, Ray. I know this wasn't your first rodeo. It was for me. Just walking in today, it kind of felt like pregame for a game, but you knew that it was going to be a lot of individual drills, and they had some of those competition periods, O-line versus D-line one-on-ones, pass catcher, DB one-on-ones. Probably my favorite moment was a 7-on-7. Pat Freiermuth caught a pass. He basically one-handed tipped it back into himself. He made a very Pat Freiermuth type of catch. Bill's cornerback Christian Benford was kind of all over him but couldn't stop him, and they got in each other's faces, butting heads, and Freiermuth just said, "You're gonna hold me all day. One hand, did you see that?" And that was basically it. Even Cordero Patterson came over and said, "Yeah, he one-handed you. It's okay." So it was a fun day out here. I hope they do it again in future seasons, and players told me that after practice as well, that they'd like to do this again.
Yeah, we're getting close, Brian. What are we, 3 weeks away now from the start of the regular season, and it's creeping up on us. 2 more games, Buffalo on Saturday, and then the Seals will wrap up in Detroit a week from that day. So football season is going to be upon us here pretty darn soon.
I could absolutely see why teams and coaches like these joint practices. I think they are very competitive. I think they do give you different looks and gauges of what you're going to expect when the real thing starts. So for Ray Fittipaldo, for our photographer and videographer, Chris Carter, for Jerry Dulac, he's been on a bunch of these. I'm Brian Batko. Thanks for, if you watched one of them, awesome. If you watched all of them, thanks a lot for following us on the Post-Gazette Sports YouTube page. We will be back with plenty more content Saturday night from the game, and look for some stories from us tomorrow too to preview that. We will see you Saturday night from here at Acrisure Stadium.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.